We're going to interrupt the silence with my voice this morning. How's it going? I'm Samuel Trapp. This is Damn Radio. You are listening to International Flavor, coming to you live from the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio on this. Can't stand the weather. I can't stand you. I can't stand the weather because either be cold or be hot. You can't be both. It drives me crazy, makes me sick, stuffs my nose, does, weird stuff. I turn lethargic and cocoon up. It's ridiculous. I dislike it. Somebody, whoever's in charge, needs to fix this. Apparently, I am not in charge because I've been bitching about it for years, and so far, nothing has worked. So, at least when I grew up as a child in Minnesota, it was cold, Heck, it was cold. That was it. It's cold. Starting in October, ending in May. And then you'd have reasonably cool weather, rarely hot. Life was good, right? At least they had a pattern. Here we got nothing. One day it's 90, the next day it's 22. It's nuts, and I dislike it. But I don't like being in... I shouldn't say that I like being in Florida, but I'm not a big fan. I don't know why. I just hasn't grown on me yet. However, much ado about much in the news going on. Apparently, the war proceeds, as we all knew it would, at least those of us who knew anything, because Trump can't accept the realities that are being forced upon him because he actually gets nothing out of a huge war. What does he get? Seriously. And out of creating something. And by the way, yesterday I saw something hilarious. Now, this was funny. Trump posted something on his, whatever it is, True Social or whatever, the only way he communicates, really, is he put something out there about the wonderful who? I mean, get this. Lindsey Graham is getting endorsed by Trump. You're desperate. You're endorsing that dude. No, I mean, that's nuts. And why in foreign policy? This is another interesting question that I was pondering all day yesterday that I still don't have an answer for. Why in the world does your Secretary of State, your foreign dude, your top foreign person, why does he not go to the meeting in Islamabad? Why isn't he off to Pakistan? Why are you sending Vance? It's an interesting question to me, and I really don't know the answer to that question. I think Rubio's another what you call it, dude I was just bitching about. Lindsey Graham, Graham, you know what? That'd be a great ticket to run for president next time. It could be Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio as your tag team back again. Whoop, there it is for you. We had much in the election news. Magyar beat Orban in the Hungary wars. So Orban, who's been in power for a long time, pretty much pro-Russia, certainly pro-Russian energy, and it was a pretty substantial defeat. And I'll tell you what, I've traveled in that area of the world. Never Hungary, haven't been there, but I'm telling you, the Poles, the Latvians, Lithuanians, Estonians, even to some extent the people of Belarus, especially those that run off to Florida, they are extremely pro-Europe, and they love the concept of we hate Russia, and we're supposed to hate Russia. And they truly just love it. I don't understand what it is. Jealousy comes in many ways. And maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't get it because I personally don't see Russia as the big bad wolf, and I can't figure out why everyone else does. It really, truly makes no sense. And, people are stupid anymore, and they really don't do their own research. And I'm thinking that the globalists who have tried and now do control Hungary, they got only the one guy left, whatever his name is, Fico. And they only got one person left that's really independent over there in Europe. The Europeans are nuts. And they're building for war. Britain yesterday put out a plan to build for war. We're building up for war against Russia. Everybody's building for war against Russia. Build it and they will come. That's how it goes. Everybody thinks Russia's on a tear to take over the planet. I don't see it that way. Never have. And I'd like to see somebody coherently state what leads them to that conclusion. I think economically, Russia, China, India, Mongolia, these people are going to dominate in the next 20, 30 years. And, maybe it's time that somebody in a little bit more detail outlined why. And I think I will endeavor to do that. Because I'm telling you, there's something screwy going on in the world. So and Trump's deeply involved in it, because I believe, as crazy as I think his commentary and his BS are, I think ultimately he understands, and he truly doesn't know the right alternatives and how to repair it. Okay? The petrodollar, no matter what, and I believe this is what we've just discovered, what he's absolutely just discovered, and now if I can't have any Hormuz, nobody can have Hormuz. I'm going to blockade the world, because that's what I do, that's what I live for. I am king. I am in charge of the planet. I'm sorry, the title is God Emperor. I thought I was going to be the first God Emperor of the planet, but apparently it's going to be Donald Trump. Yesterday he said he was Jesus or something. He equated himself to Jesus after the Pope. There's a whole story on it. Oh, man. I can't take it. Where is this? I got to find this for you. Trump casts himself as Jesus. This is great. Let's see. Where is he? U.S. president portrayed himself as a holy healer, while some noted a similarity between the man being healed and Jeffrey Epstein in the photo. U.S. President Trump has shared an AI-generated image of himself as a robed, Christ-like figure healing a bedridden man flanked by Eagles, fighter jets, and U.S. service members with the Statue of Liberty U.S. flag in the background. The post triggered backlash, no doubt, with some users suggesting the figure being healed resembled the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. I don't give a crap about the guy being healed. I give a crap about Trump playing Jesus. He's got light coming out of his hands, people. The guy's... and this is nuts. What in the hell are you doing? I don't get it. The guy has gone off the deep end or something. The image was posted on Truth Social yesterday after Trump took a broadside at Pope Leo XIV, calling the Chicago-born pontiff weak on crime and terrible on foreign policy. What do we care if the Pope is weak on crime and terrible on foreign policy? Trump is weak on foreign policy. Well, Trump is terrible on foreign policy. And I don't know about crime, whatever. I don't like the way he's doing it. But the terrible on foreign policy, Jesus, that projection much? In the picture, Trump didn't give himself a halo, but he's seen wearing red and white drapes, colors of symbolizing bloodshed and Christ's sacrifice for humanity, as well as his own absolute purity. The Pope criticized the U.S.-Israel attack against Iran and described Trump's threats to destroy Iranian civilization as truly unacceptable. Now, I'm not the Pope, but I agree. That's truly unacceptable for Israel to destroy a civilization. which is what they're doing, and for the U.S. to say he's going to do the thing and create a threat against the entire people. What happened to saving them? What happened to, we're going to save the people of Iran from themselves and their terrible leadership? What happened to that? U.S. president described himself as a non-denominational Christian, also stated, we don't like a pope that's going to say it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. Well, we have nuclear weapons. What's the Pope think about that? Trump said, is it okay for us to have a nuclear weapon? Truly, there's no equality of nations. The only thing that we have to go on here in America, apparently, is saying that everybody else, since you're not us, you're nothing. And that's what we do. And we say, a sovereign country, screw you. You're not sovereign. We tell you who's sovereign. We are England in, when the Americans, the colonists departed for brighter shores in America and didn't want the tyranny. You think Iran wants us there? I mean, you think they're inviting us in with open arms? They want some Trump? Give me some Trump. I want that. We want people. What are we fighting for if we're not fighting for the people of Iran? Which was what was alleged at first. We're going to decapitate these guys, and then we're going to be fighting for the people of Iran. Usually we're fighting for democracy, and that was BS too. But now we're just straight up about it. We're going to destroy your civilization. Been around 5,000 years. We're going to destroy it. We're going to make you martyrs. By the way, the Shias, they like being martyrs. They want to be martyrs. To them, that's glorious. Okay? To many, that's glorious. I'm against death, certainly my own. I'm against it all. But to die defending something you believe in, there's worse ways to go, Senseless, mindless destruction, that is crap. I'd prefer not to go that way. If I'm going to go, I'd like it to be doing something I appreciate. I'd like it to be doing something I believe in and not going over and destroying another culture. I think that's crap, and it's just wrong. And for Trump to talk like that is truly offensive to me. And it should be offensive to a lot of other people. And by the way, I think it is. I think after, he supported Orban. Okay. He sent J.D. Vance over there to pump Orban in his last minutes. Do you think that helped with what Iran is going through right now and what Europe is going through because of it right now? What the freaking world is going through because of it? People can't afford gas. Who do they blame? Trump. So you send somebody over as Trump to go and do it, to go and support his guy. I want him to support Lindsey Graham because I think, if anything, it'll take Lindsey Graham down. I mean, that'll never happen because our system is such that people like Graham control it. And there are a lot of people saying that there's going to be interference in our own elections, and I'm not an expert on that. I know the JR's has interesting point of view on that, and I like listening to him. And so, anyway, Trump finished up by saying, I'm not a fan of Pope Leo. And then the Governor Newsom posted something in return. Did you see it with with Trump in a black cloak with a "Make America Great" hat on, very skinny, bony-looking arms. Epstein looking over his shoulder, and he's got a they call, what do they call him? A sai? Well, it's a sickle of some sort, but I think the instrument itself is called a sai, but I don't remember. And but whatever, the Grim Reaper carries around, so Trump's the Grim Reaper. And Mark Kelly was quick to condemn, he's a Democrat, condemn the remarks. And he said, as a Catholic, and I'm not a Catholic and I still find it abhorrent, but he says, as a Catholic, I find it abhorrent that the President of the United States would publicly attack the successor of St. Peter. Kelly wrote on X, Donald Trump is flailing. His war in Iran has led to the death and injury of American service members and the death of Iranian children. Now, I believe both those things. And I also believe that Donald Trump is flailing right now. The blockades of the ports of Iran, the blockades of the Hormuz Strait, he doesn't get it yet. And, how quickly is that going to turn around the economies of these places? You think that nobody getting through is better than a trickle? I don't think so. But the Christ-like imagery that he posted is far from accurate, by the way. And former Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and former Trump ally said the president's post was more than blasphemy. She called it the Antichrist spirit. Now, have any of you noticed? Now, I have. And it saddens me. It really does. Trump attacked in a rant of ungodly proportion. I believe it was on Saturday. This long, hard to read, difficult to comprehend diatribe about the evils of a number of his former allies. If you piss the man off, you're suddenly an idiot, a moron, worth nothing. If you tell him what you believe to be the truth and he disagrees with it, you are worse than nishtojestvo, which is absolute nothingness. You're a nishtojestvo, nothing. And so low you can't even reach up and touch the bottom. You're so low that you could play handball against the curb. You are low. You are despicable and disgusting. And that is how he treats former allies. I always used to tell people when I was practicing law that you can always tell a person who really did love their ex-spouse if they don't treat them poorly. Okay, now you can say bad things about your ex-spouse. I've got several that I wish I was aware of when I married them. Things that I wish I had known. But I don't blame them. I blame me for not finding out first. And they all had their huge, strong points. And I try hard not to destroy them. The first one in particular was a raven nut job, but she was awesome. You know, there was great things about that woman. And we had some very, very good times in my youth. You don't take people that you once thought highly of and turn them into the Antichrist. You can disagree. You can disengage. You can even do what many people do and cut them off forever and just say, you know what? I don't want this person in my life anymore. Because in reality, it is you that is supposed to create your own form of happiness and be free to create that form of happiness as you like. And if you're no longer happy, something needs to be done about that. If you can't make yourself happy. You know, I had a relationship with somebody once said, "Oh, you don't even try to make me happy." I said, "Who am I to make you happy? That's not my job. I'm supposed to be happy, and you're supposed to be happy, and we're supposed to share each other's happiness. Because there's more happiness between the two of us." Put two glasses of happiness together, right? Let's say it's 5 milliliters in each tube. You got 5 milliliters. If you pour my happiness into your happiness, something wonderful happens. There's really a hell of a lot more than 10 milliliters of happiness, because your happiness, it grows better. And that's really weird to put together, but that's what I freaking believe. And I don't believe that it's my job to make anyone happy. It's my job to except myself. It's my job to make myself happy and attempt to share that happiness with others. That's it. I mean, what more do you want in the world, for God's sake? And Trump sees it totally different. He thinks that if you disagree with someone, sometimes disagreement's the right answer, by the way, and he does not want any disagreement. And the true Trumpers, the truly Trumpers, they agree with that. They think that's how it's supposed to be. You can't say anything bad. I was a little surprised also over the weekend, and this leads me to believe some things are not going as planned. And this is probably the biggest thing for me. It struck me as so odd that it makes me begin to believe that something like this will make you believe the sniping from the sides that say that Trump's got something really big that he's trying hard to hide. Because there have been a lot of people over the last week saying, including Tucker Carlson said something, that Trump has something truly, maybe it's not even horrible, but it's horrible to himself, according to them, to hide. And if anything would make me believe that, it's not the commentary of Tucker Carlson or Alex Jones or any of these people that Trump now hates instead of, before loved. And it is this. Melania Trump, and if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. She made a surprise Epstein video statement. And I'm not going to play it for you, but you should go out and watch it. And if anything, that was an alarm bell to me that things are certainly amiss. And they went out of their way to report that Trump didn't know about it before it occurred, and that it was a surprise statement, that she did it through her own press office, press secretary, whatever she does. And I don't know. I haven't really dug into it that much, but I did watch the video. And truthfully, I've never seen her speak publicly about much before, because she doesn't take that role, really. People don't follow her that much. I'm not saying that everybody follows her, but they don't hang on her every word. Now, way back when people were trying to destroy Barbara Bush or Nancy Reagan, that happened, or even Michelle Obama. They would follow them around and listen to their every word. Well, you don't really see that as much with Melania, because she's so not unapproachable, unattackable. She, by all accounts, she's apolitical, and she's a very good person, a great mother, all the things that you would want in a fantastically beautiful woman like that. So while some users are scrambling to defend Trump, insisting that his latest post did not offend Christian worshipers, I'll tell you what, I consider myself Christian regardless of the non-denominational status I have, and it offended me. It's nuts. It's BS. Who the hell do you think you are? Apparently, he thinks he's God. And, at least the God Emperor. I can't imagine he hasn't taken my title yet. And, we're changing the names of the War Department. Maybe Hegseth could be the God of War. Other people wonder whether the bedridden figure was Jeffrey Epstein. We just wonder, It's strange, a mixed up, muddled up, shook up world. That is for sure. I want to tell you what my belief is on what happens after this blockade. Okay, let's say that the blockade goes on. Now, lots of people are up in arms about this. Think about this. China. Think about who are we trying to beat up the most on, okay? And who, by the way, is this affecting the least? Okay, it is going to affect China. It is affecting India. It's affecting people that we really don't want it to affect. It's forcing some activity, and it's affecting it much more than Trump believed it would in the beginning. The economy of the world is on fire, and it is not going to end well. There are countries already empty, have no fuel, nothing. They are pricing it. It's so expensive. There are protests all over Europe. There are protests. Europe's got it really bad because they can only buy the stuff from us. Where else? They can't get it through the Straits of Hormuz. They're not going to get it through the Suez Canal because people are going to block that. They're not going to get it through the Red Sea. They're not going to get it through the Black Sea. They're not going to get it through the Mediterranean. I'm telling you, things are really going to hell in a handbasket fast economically. And we aren't an isolated pillar of hope in America financially. Our GDP was adjusted down to 0.24 or something like that from last year. It was 4.0. And it's going down. And, everybody wants to say Trump is going to repair the economy and fix all the stuff. And you know what? I was for it, but I believe he's lost the path. And he certainly doesn't have a path. I was for a few of the things that he was doing. I was never totally for terrorists and his international policy, and I didn't think they would work the way he wanted. And then when the Supreme Court overturned them, it has really created a big problem. And remember what we're trying to do right now with the Straits of Hormuz, what the war really is and what Iran is pushing. So the Straits of Hormuz are how many miles across? 21 at the widest point, 21 miles across. And Oman's on one side, Iran's on the other, okay, at this narrowest point. It's full of mines. There are paths that you have to get through. There are no warships, American warships in the area. And where are they going to block them from? You know why the American warships and destroyers won't go in there? Because it's only 21 miles across. They're not going to go in there. Certainly not during a time war. They're not going to go in there because they know that their defenses against a mass swarm of drones isn't what it ought to be. And what are they going to do? Have guys on the aircraft carrier shooting them out of the sky with guns? They don't have the ability to take them all down at once, and it's a logistical portion. Mostly, it's a defensible. It's not a defensible position to send in American destroyers, American fighter jets on platforms. Floating platforms. It's not a good deal. And I told you before about Iranian subs, the little mini subs that are, they're not virtually undetectable, but they're very hard to find when you get there. And so now the block of the Straits of Hormuz blocks off gas to the rest of the world from the most vital portion of the world that needs to supply it. And Trump's doing that, okay? So you cut it off already. The trickles are only going into certain countries. And Trump, he's free to blockade wherever he wants, according to himself. He's blocking Venezuela. He's blocking Cuba. Now he's blocking Hormuz. He wants to block every port in Iran. He wants to do all of these things. And the fight is because those that are being allowed through are paying Iran in yuan, the Chinese currency. All of the shipping that is coming out of there is being paid for in Chinese currency. This is going to tank the U.S. markets, which it's already done in that regard, and it's going to get worse. And Russia is now it just finished recently. Russia, right now, it's finishing up the final touches right now. They're finishing a new pipeline to China right now. Construction will end this year with gas flow, liquid natural gas, beginning in January of 27. And that one pipe is why Europe is paying triple prices for energy, why the U.S. dollar is getting pushed aside, and why China is solving one of its own biggest energy nightmares, right? What is actually being built here is the Far Eastern Route pipeline from Sakhalin Islands to northeast China. Construction will finish in 2026. The pipe will carry 12 billion cubic meters of gas a year. Originally, it was only 10 billion. Russia and China agreed to boost capacity by 20%. Why? Because China asked. That's why. Two state giants. One of them is Russia's Gazprom, and the other one is China's National Petroleum Corporation that runs the side in China. Two giants, 12 billion cubic meters is huge, but the real story is a little bit different than that. The pipeline is the smallest piece of a much larger machine. The Far Eastern route is only the warm-up round. because behind the Far Eastern route sits Power of Siberia 1. Now, I've been following this one for a while. Power of Siberia 1 is already pumping 38.8 billion cubic meters per year to China. 800 million above what Russia was originally going to provide. And it's at full capacity every single day of every single year. And there's Power of Siberia 2 that they signed late last year. I did an entire program on it for you. Power of Siberia 2 was, well, I think they signed it in August, September, something like that. And that one is going to be 50 billion cubic meters per year, and it will cross Mongolia to get to China. So Mongolia will get some out of there too. Excuse me. And that's a beautiful area down there, by the way. 4,000 kilometers of pipe. Construction is started already. And the Far Eastern route, 12 billion. Power of Siberia, 38.8 billion, right? Power of Siberia 2, 50 billion. By the early 2030s, Russia will be sending China over 100 billion cubic meters annually. That's the same volume Russia used to send to Europe before the Ukraine war. Nice and cheap, good gas, and through Ukraine. Ukraine made piles of money off it. Ukraine doesn't have its own gas. They have to get it from U.S. as well. This is foolishness on everybody's count. You're going to pay triple for what you got. Europe cut off Russian gas. Russia turned to the east and found a bigger, hungrier customer. And by the way, they're dealing with India as well. They're shifting totally Southeast Asia with their energy needs because Southeast Asia, Trump tries to cut off from the Straits of Hormuz because he don't want them paying in BRICS currency, which is the yuan, basically. Or the ruble. Half of Russia's funds are paid to them in ruble. Half are paid in the rupee. I'm sorry, if it comes from India. And from China, it comes from the yuan. And so, here's why the customer, China, is hungry anyway. They have the largest industrial capacity on the planet, which we helped formulate. 70% of China's oil imports pass through one narrow strait that's controlled by who? The U.S. Navy. That's a nightmare for China, right? That's a Chinese problem. And because they don't like it. They don't like that. They don't want to be controlled by the United States. And so they're not. But that nightmare, China saw as a vulnerability. And so most of its imported energy arrived by sea. 70% of its crude passes through the Straits of Malacca. That's a narrow, the one I was trying to remember the other day, between Malaysia and Indonesia to get to there. 70%. And if the U.S. Navy ever decides to block that strait, China's economy would grind to a halt. Factories would close, military would be out of fuel, prices will spike. Chinese officials call this the Malacca Dilemma, and they've called it that for more than 20 years. Land-based pipelines between Russia and China eliminate that risk. So a pipe buried in the ground, delivering gas every single day. That's why Russia's gas matters more than the price. It's about national ability to diversify, to have oil. Right now, Russia's gas makes up only 20% of China's total gas imports. But when Siberia 2, Power of Siberia 2, is online, the number's going to go way up. China will get more energy security, and Russia gets pretty much a captive audience. And the U.S. notably loses what? Dollars that it used to get from Beijing. But mostly, it loses its most powerful lever over Beijing. What about the sides, that Europe, that walked away from Russian gas completely? Same thing happens to them. China's busy locking in cheap gas, and Europe made a very different choice. Very different. Before the Ukraine war, Russia supplied 40% of Europe's gas. 40%. Today, that number is 13%. They say that next year it's only going to be 5%, and it's going to be blocked off for good in 2027. They're banning all Russian pipeline gas by September 2027, which has been going on since the Soviet era. These huge pipelines built from before. And that now, so Turkey gets it through Turk Stream. There's another stream, I forget the name of it, that goes through to cover places like Serbia and places like that come up through Greece. So Europe is instead, what are they doing? They're buying American liquid natural gas shipped across the Atlantic, and it's very expensive. In early 2025, the EU paid an average of a euro and 8 cents per cubic meter. In 2025, Russian LNG is only 51 cents of that euro, so half a euro. So Europe is paying more than double. In Europe, that's more than double. Europe is paying triple for the gas that China gets cheaper through a pipe, and then they have to have it shipped, which adds all kinds of costs. And so, Europeans, they don't have any manufacturing competitiveness. They're shutting down Volkswagen factories after, 70 years or whatever it was. Meanwhile, Russia hasn't felt any loss at all. It just shifted to another market, and they already replaced Europe with a much bigger customer. And but the real war is not over the gas; it's over the money that they use to buy it. Because all of the stuff the reason for this, Europe says, well, Russia needs our dollars. They have to have our dollars, or they're gonna fail miserably. Russia says, no, not really. We get the yuan. They have their own payment mechanisms. And I'm telling you, people are flocking to these payment mechanisms. I've been saying it forever. Some people are saying it's going to cause the dollar and the world market to collapse. And who's going to step in to save it? It isn't going to be the U.S. because nobody's going to loan us any money. And we're not going to be able to borrow anymore. We already dropped to a AA rating instead of a AAA. So where are we going to get it? And when we get it, it's going to cost us more. What are we going to do? We're going to print more. What does that cause? Inflation. And it's not going to be good. People are frightened over this economically. I'm not happy with it. There's some real, this is nonsense. These pipelines are priced only in yuan and rubles, no dollars involved. What's happening with Russian payments and gas flowing to China, it's paid for in 50% rubles and 50% yuan. Not a single U.S. dollar goes through that transaction. Across all Russia and China trade, not just gas, now over 95% bypasses the dollar completely. They have built their own payment system, their own banks, and their own rules, their own insurance companies. Why do you think London is so up in arms about this and everybody's pissed off at Russia? Because they're not even buying insurance through Lloyd's London anymore. The only people that used to be able to insure international shipping were Lloyd's London. And now what? Well, some in New York too, but not anymore. There's insurance being provided by others, but they won't accept them at their ports. There's all kinds of fights in this area on the economics. Trust me, this war that we're seeing with Iran, it has nothing to do with wanting to liquidate the Iranian people. It has to do with Trump wanting to steal their oil and make them submit, just like he tried to do in Venezuela, which long term isn't going to work either. But it's it's all over the dollar hegemony, which is dying. I've been saying it, for a long time. That the dollar is it's not going to die. It'll always be a currency, and it'll take a long time to get us there. But it's coming. It's certainly coming. People aren't going to put up with this. They're just not. And they're not going to put up with Lindsey Graham saying you got to fight for democracy in Ukraine when we know it's not about democracy. They aren't going to accept the lies anymore. Somebody has finally been put to task and been said to put up or shut up, and most of people are putting up. They're going, well, fine, screw you then. We're not going to trade in dollars if at all possible. And by the way, it's not just people that are unfriendly towards us. It's friends too. They're diversifying all over Europe. They're diversifying in Turkey, Canada, diversifying. And are they using U.S. dollars? Not always. So now China and Russia have built an off-ramp from this system. China gets cheap energy, Russia gets paid, and the U.S. dollar is being squeezed out of the world's largest energy deal. Nobody else has a deal this huge. Nobody. This is the largest energy deal. And so where does this leave America's own energy ambitions? Because guess what? The United States just spent billions betting that China would keep buying gas from us. And that bet is falling apart. America has built massive LNG export terminals thinking they were going to sell it to China. And China just is stopped buying it. Let's look at that, the numbers. In the first 8 months of 2025, China's LNG imports from the U.S. dropped 18%. Why? Because Russian pipeline gas is cheaper and arrives overland. U.S. currently supplies only about 5% of China's LNG. That number's about to fall even further. The Far Eastern route alone adds 12 billion cubic meters per year. Power of Serbia will add another 50 billion, and that gas no longer has to be purchased by ship from America. The LNG exporters spent a decade and billions of dollars building terminals, infrastructure, and now they have to sell it all to Europe. They were betting on Chinese demand and their business, but the Russian pipelines are undercutting them on price and delivery. A ship from the Gulf Coast takes a month to reach China. A pipeline gas is delivered in days, cheaper, faster, unblockable by the Navy. So you got to do a direct attack on one of them or the other of them to destroy their supply. So the U.S. LNG boom was built on the assumption that China is going to keep on buying it, and that assumption is now wrong. But here's the twist with that: even with all this leverage, Russia isn't and China aren't rushing. So they signed this agreement in September 25, but China is still trying to push Russia further and get a better price. Russia has other customers, Turkey, Central Asia, global LNG. China has other suppliers too, Qatar, Australia, Turkmenistan. They're two large economies trying to fight this off, and Power of Siberia 1 is flowing at record levels. Power of Siberia 2 is on its way, and they've agreed to the route upon Mongolia. All right, sir. How may I help you this morning?
Cheaper, faster, unblockable.
You have to turn me down.
Hey.
Are you with me? Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's going on?
Oh, hey, I don't know that it'll take forever for the dollar to be worthless.
Well, I didn't say the dollar would be worthless. That's not what I said. I didn't say the dollar would be worthless. I said it's no longer going to have hegemony.
I think there's a possibility that happens pretty fast.
Well, I think we're headed toward a huge correction. That's what I think.
If there's lots of quote dollars and everybody with big assets is trying to get away from the dollar, then only one stuck with just dollars is poor people.
Well, that's right. It's the U.S. and people aren't buying U.S.
We don't
debt.
have anything to produce.
No.
If we don't have anything to produce or any commodities to sell or any services to provide.
No, that and this is why way back when I was always pretty much pro-Trump, at least nationally, because he was starting to look inward and not try to control the rest of the world, trying to develop our capacity, because we're one of only 2 countries in the world that can basically supply all of our own energy and all of our own needs internally.
Not without refineries.
Well, I agree, but All I mean is resource-wise. Resource-wise.
Resources. Remember him saying we have our own lumber, but we don't have lumber. We have trees. Wood gets processed before it gets sold. You know what I'm saying? We don't have tire factories. We can't isolate if we don't have any electronics or any tires or any gas refineries or.
Right, we've diversified everything out of the country, but what my point was is that Trump, when he was running for office, said that it's time to bring that back. When I think about, and I'm not one of the MAGA guys that runs around wearing a hat, I don't do that. Mm-hmm. But when they talked about Make America Great, I was always pretty much for the concept of bringing manufacturing and industrial capacity back to the United States because we've exported it all over the world. All of our auto manufacturing basically went to Mexico. All of our manufacturing went to China and Vietnam, wherever. All our textiles are all way over. So we don't have anything anymore.
Sir, my point is if you're going to make America, if you're earnest in your intentions, you set it up first. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we may be too late for that. You could be right.
In 2015, when he said that he was going to make America great again, I knew right away he started off with he liked tax loopholes, and he's going to give us trickle down. And I was like, oh, hell, here we go. And so my idea of Make America Great Again is that there should be a lot of concrete factories, people building heavy equipment for roads, steel factory.
See, I've had similar commentary on that because the rest of the world, through China and China's belts and roads, has been building infrastructure. And they've been building infrastructure between countries. And we got nothing here. We can't build a road from anywhere. A high-speed rail. Right. Can't do it. And everywhere else the world is doing it right now.
China's steel industry, they produce 35 times what we do, and they have all kinds of super alloys and stuff.
I know.
And China has two parts of the economy. They have a private economy, and then they have stuff they consider vital interests or whatever.
State-run interests, huge.
And the country invest money in that stuff. And what I keep telling people around here is you can't expect a private company to organize good enough to compete against China and everybody else. They have to, plus the rest of the market. You see what I'm saying?
I see exactly what you're saying. And by the way, you're absolutely correct. And that I've said similar things for months, is that you can disagree with how China is run, how Russia is run, but one thing you can't disagree with is that they have state-protected interests. I talked earlier in this program about Gazprom and the Chinese national refineries that have this gas companies, that these two work for themselves. But those aren't private organizations trying to make a profit. Those are government-run industries that pay very well, that have tons of engineers, that are very highly capitalized, but they're capitalized by the government. And the government decides how that money will work so that you don't have 20 different competing. I'm not saying capitalism bad, communism good. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm not saying anything like that. But we are recognizing right now in America that all of the things that we want, high-speed rail, huge ports, new airports everywhere, are not really at an optimum capacity for our system, because our system is so fractured, and state rights is what it is. So we don't have one global thing. And so very good points. I thank you.
All right. So Trump says we're probably going to need 1.5 trillion next year. And,
Yeah, that's
nobody batting an eyeball.
no, and that's a 60% increase. Well, it's 160% increase because last year it was only just under 900,000. So you're going to add 600. That's 66% on top of what you had last year. And now, by the way, they asked for another 200 billion for Iran, and that's just the beginning.
Yeah, that was before.
That was before all this. That was a month ago almost.
He wanted 200 billion right now. We need
right.
200 billion.
This is not going to end well. We're almost to 40 trillion, and it's not going to get smaller. And by the way, nobody's buying American debt anymore, except people we're forcing to buy it.
Well, that's what I was saying. Is the dollar will come crashing down when it doesn't represent anything.
It's truly possible. It's possible. I saw a couple of shows.
Not possible.
You might be right. I still try to hold out some hope for the other. And I listened to a Russian economist. What the hell was his name? It was a really good show, and I actually have it here as one of my topics for today. Mikhail Khazin, and he's a really good, really smart guy. And I like listening to him. And he talks about the global economic stuff, just like what we're doing right now. Only he's an Now, I'm an economist. I got an economics degree, but that don't mean anything. This guy has worked in economics his entire life, right? And and I understand the concepts, but he gets it. He's like a Jeffrey Sachs level, but in Russia. And he's a really smart guy. And so he's talking about some of the exact same things that I believe that the dollar is going to stick. The dollar is going to be around forever, just like the British pound, which took a beating. They switched to the euro, then they switched back to the pound, and all that. There's these common things with all the debt are what's going to kick us right in the doodads, and we're going to be in some trouble. But I don't think it's the end of the dollar. That I don't think. I think we go back to being a minor currency. We go back to being a regular world currency, and people are going to start, because everybody's recognized from all this Ukraine BS, all this Iran now BS, it's an even bigger lesson. What the U.S. is doing in Venezuela. It's that you cannot trust what America's going to do, because rules don't apply to us. We make them up as we go along, and we do whatever power does, just like people have done. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, I interrupted, but I think most of the world's already known that. I think the general population of America is starting to figure it out.
They may be starting to figure it out that we have been building our economy on the backs of the rest of the world, and that is ending. I very much appreciate your call. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye.
Yeah, have a good day. And there he goes, as they say on some channels or some shows on this very station. So let's talk about that pipeline going through Mongolia, though, because from Mongolia, that pipeline's going to mean what? That's going to mean some income for them, because they get transit. They get what Ukraine used to get. They get transit fees, and they get to suck it off for themselves. And Mongolia is not backward. I haven't been there yet, but I've seen some beautiful things, and I really wish to go. I'm hoping. So this year, India has the BRICS conference, and I'm trying to figure that out. It's in October, and I really want to go. And I'm setting that up. I got to get my press credentials accepted by them, and then I can go. It's got to be through their foreign ministry or whatever. And so far, their instructions are pretty vague. But I'm trying to set that up now, because I think, I don't want to say the BRICS is the answer to it all. It's not. But I'm certainly wanting, it's not even a defensive capability sort of thing, or a joint. It's not a NATO. It's more of an EU kind of thing spread around the world, more of an economic grouping. And these regional groupings are really going to matter. And BRICS is really going to matter. And the fact that China and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and all of these two things are what you need to watch. Shanghai Cooperation and BRICS. And there's some things to talk about in there. But the fact that U.S. hegemony is ending, I think, is now generally accepted. Okay. Now, it wasn't when I first started spouting off about it several years ago, and which is what led me to. It was about when I heard that the BRICS conference was going to be in Russia. I'm telling you, I was so excited about it. It was about a year before, so that conference was in October of 2024. And it was somewhere about a year and a half before that I was in Russia during May of 2023 or something like that. And when I first heard about it, and that's when I first checked on their website to see if what was going to happen. And that's when I first started taking a very big interest in BRICS and hegemony. And I'm a talker. Everybody knows it. And so when I get in a room with a group of people and we get to talk politics or reality or things like that, I'll do it. And I try hard not to condemn other people's points of view. You can have your points of view. If it's an intelligent point of view, I'm on your side. I'm with you. I may not agree with you, but I'm never going to condemn you for it. And I hope you don't condemn me because my belief's different from yours. That's just the way it is. And you're not required to think like I am, or I do. You don't have to do that. But watching all of this spread out and what is happening is exactly what I said would happen years ago before I went to the BRICS conference. I said, on a big picture strategic board where you have all of your countries on the map and you watch about who's starting to deal with who and why they're not dealing with other people, you have to accept as a reality, and it's hard not to, okay? The U.S., if you want to do business with us, what do you get? Whether it's Donald Trump or anybody else, if you want to do business with us, what do you get? You get arrogance. You get, well, we're America. You want to do business with us, you're going to have to concede X. You want money from our World Bank, you're going to have to do X. You're going to have to change this. You're going to have to start to... It's funny because one of the biggest tools that we use at the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund are these austerity measures. We say, look, you have... 10 million people on welfare. That's a lot. And we think you should lower that amount to 8 million or lower the amount you give them from 1,000 a month down to 800, whatever. But you need to lower that. That's austerity. You're giving away too much of your income to these losers. People that, why are you getting all this? We try to push them away from the social programs and put them into these so-called austerity measures so that we can take more of their money. And we've done that forever through the IMF and through the World Bank and through whoever's going to give these people loans. And we don't give them loans to build infrastructure. We give them loans to, buy food from a next door neighbor or from us. We give them loans and then we take the money. You have to buy the products from us. So first of all, we direct who you have to bank through, where you've got to buy your products, and whether or not you can spend your own money in a sovereign way like sovereign countries do. Okay, the contrast with that is China. China doesn't do that. China, for years, for at least my lifetime, at least since I was in high school in the 80s, was that China bought our debt. China and its massive growth funded our economy along with much of the rest of the world, because that's where we were exporting our capacity to, so that the roaring 80s growth in the stock market and in all of the commodities and stuff like that, and people getting massively wealthy for doing nothing but moving money around to various places. People were learning how to move money around. Well, those days aren't able to be reproduced anymore, because what China and Russia, that story I tell you about the energy going through in a pipeline, and the rest of the world is watching this intently. And Canada even is doing it. Canada going to China? And Donald Trump being pissed off about it, he ought to be, but he forced it. It was going to happen anyway, but he forced it more quickly. And, we're not friends in Europe anymore because Europe's doing the same thing. They won't buy gas from China, from Russia, but they'll buy it from China. Where do you think China's getting it? It's just a big circle because these idiots don't want to buy straight from Russia because you still have to have the Western-based dog whistle. Oh, geez, Russia's bad. We're good. But China's becoming good. Okay. And China's becoming good, but what they're doing is cutting off the debt that they're buying, unloading American debt in massive quantities. Every quarter, I have reported to you at least 60 to 80, sometimes even 100 billion elimination of debt or not buying more debt. And the U.S. can't force China to keep buying debt, and they're not doing it. And China's not buying it. And they used to be the largest. Now Japan's the largest, and we're forcing it on them, and they don't want to buy that much more. They can't support it. I gave you stories about that. They can't support the debt. The Middle East doesn't want it. And how were they buying it? They were buying it through the petrodollar. So they'd get paid in the petrodollar, which meant that all petroleum had to be paid for in dollars. And so that would mean that they would get all these dollars, but then they'd have to hold them. So all the wealth that they held is in dollars, and they're diversifying. Saudi Arabia is taking yuan. UAE is taking yuan. And certainly Iran is taking yuan because they've been sanctioned. Why? Because they were taking yuan. And so this is how it works. And the system, the economic system, I thought about reading you this Khazin interview because it was very interesting to watch the entire show. And he's well spoken anyway. Let me finish up on this pipeline through Mongolia, and maybe we'll go over to that article for you because Mongolia still does maintain ties with the U.S. The pipeline means those transit fees. Estimate places those fees at about $1 billion a year. With a country with a GDP of only about 20 billion, that's huge. Mongolia still has ties with the U.S., Japan, and South Korea, what they call third neighbors. Because they're right between. They're surrounded by Russia and China. And that balancing act does make Russia and China cautious as far as putting a pipeline through there, and they haven't started digging in Mongolia yet. And there's talk about rerouting the pipeline through Kazakhstan if Mongolia becomes too difficult to work with. I think ultimately it'll be in both places. And Kazakhstan is freaking beautiful, and it is having a revival of sorts. It's a beautiful country anyway. And it's beautiful people. I love it over there, and I'd love to go back and see it. I mean, of course, I love a lot of places, and I'd like to get to more. That's country number 54 or something, and I'm on 57 now, and hopefully going to get to a couple more this year. The memorandum signed with Mongolia in September 25 does include Mongolia, but that route is not final until construction begins. And Mongolia has to accept that they're going to get paid in yuan and ruble and not any dollars. They'll have to convert that money into dollars some other way. And they also face pressure from the U.S. and from Russia and from China, and it brings the attention of these two superpowers into Mongolia or into Kazakhstan either way. So what could still delay or cancel this particular project? At the state of the play is the Far Eastern route is being built right now. Power of Siberia 2 is being negotiated and going to be done, but the physical one is operating right now. Power of Siberia 1, 12, what was that number? 12 billion, what do you call them? 12 billion cubic meters of gas a year. And I thought it was meters, but I forgot the cubic part, so I had to go back and read it. At any rate, the Far Eastern route is being built. And by the way, these are just occurrences. These are facts. And you don't have to agree with the conclusions that I come to because of these facts, but these are facts. And people aren't talking about them a lot. When when you hear about the Straits of Hormuz and eliminated, guess who else Russia has a common border with? Iran. And by default, that means Iran, China, Russia, they're all connected. Now, people are saying that they have if Iran can hold out, which by all accounts they plan to. I mean, the fact that they didn't come to an agreement over the weekend has Trump all up in arms, and he has to continue to posture and up the ante. Well, fine, then I'll block all of them. Okay, so what are we fighting for in Iran? We were fighting for no nukes. Then we were fighting for the Straits of Hormuz to open because nobody picked that. The Straits of Hormuz were open before. They were open before this war ever started. Nobody had to pay a nickel. It was never there. It's never even been questioned. Well, now people are questioning. Why is it that you were allowed to charge a fee in the Suez Canal, charge a fee in the Malacca Straits, charge a fee in Panama, charge a fee to go through the Great Lakes, any of these other common waters that you're charging a fee from, but other countries, Iran and Oman, cannot charge a fee to go through the Straits of Hormuz. It's ludicrous. I mean, level playing field, fellows. We got to have a level playing field, and we don't. And now Trump is going to try to force that issue. And so, what's he going to do? He's going to destroy a civilization. That's what he says. And I'm telling you, he's losing in the court of public opinion. He is losing a huge swath. And I think the Viktor Orban thing occurring over the weekend, I don't think that the Trump support of Orban helped much. I don't think so. I think the young people, they said there was a huge turnout. And the young people all want Europe. They all want their social free this and free that. And all the globalists, they want to keep up with that freedom. They still want Europe as the global superpower, like the United States. It's not, but they think Trump is a short-term problem, and we'll get back to business as usual as soon as another person comes in, and then maybe they'll go back to following America's lead everywhere they go. But nobody's willing to right now. And frankly, I don't blame them. Some of the mistakes that I am seeing being made. You don't have to agree with me. A lot of people don't. That's fine by me. But I think it's important to discuss this stuff. What else did we want to put on the Hungary thing? Trump casting himself as Jesus. I already did that. That's crazy. There was another guy that. There was another huge, what do you call it? Beating, two things that I wanted to talk about in Ukraine. Ukrainian draft enforcers, you ought to see this video, beat and drag a man from his apartment. And there's a video of it circulating on Telegram. It is not good. And people are all up in arms about it because they're still doing it. They're dragging people out, beating the crap out of them, sending them to the front to die. They're still dying in big numbers, huge. And it's not good. And if you think that Ukraine is fighting for democracy, you better think again. They're fighting to be the place where the U.S. puts all its money. That's all this is about, is where the U.S. can stand across the border from Russia and with our NATO forces and, glare at Russia in the eye and dream about how Europe really wants all of Russia's resources. It's once again, resource war. Ukraine tried to attack the Russian space base during the launch of the satellites for internet. So Kiev orchestrated a drone raid on Plisetsk as Moscow was deploying 16 satellites 2 weeks ago, according to Dmitry Bakanov. Ukraine attempted to strike a Russian cosmodrome the same day as rockets carrying the satellites into orbit was taking off, Russia's space agency Roscosmos confirmed. Speaking to Russian President Putin, agency head Dmitry Bakhanov said that an attempted drone strike on Plesetsk Cosmodrome in the northern part of the country was foiled. Bakhanov, who has led Roscosmos since February of 2025, made the comments Saturday prior to the Cosmonaut Day, which was a big celebration. It was yesterday, I think, which marks the first I did my Russian show yesterday in Russian. I did it in Russian, and I did it here in the studio, and I figured out how to do it on YouTube at the same time. And so I was able to go live on YouTube and get commentary, and there were a bunch of people who, because I haven't done it for a while, because I wanted to do it here in the studio, and I wanted to do it as it occurred and record it and do them both at the same time. One live on Damn Radio, and so yesterday morning, and I haven't picked a concrete time, but I really intend to go back to doing my Russian language version of it once a week, and compiling together all of the topics, or highlighting the topics that I spoke about the week before and topics that are coming up. Well, yesterday was the day that the first human went into outer space, a guy named Yuri Gagarin in 1961, when he was the first person to go into space. And Putin had meetings with his agency heads. And I like how he does that, too. They're all public, they're all televised, and they're all put on TV, and every once in a while I'll watch them. And I watched this one. I went back and watched the Cosmodrome one. That's what got me interested in this story a little bit, because the Ukrainians are trying to destroy. They don't want Russia to have the ability to get the internet, and Elon Musk has cut them off from Starlink. And is doing a better job of finding the terminals that Russia stole from the Ukrainians or killed people and took. And so they have had a little bit of difficulty, but that's all going away now. And they say that Russia now has the capabilities of doing their own internet. And this is what I keep talking about. More and more countries are going to begin to send their own satellites into orbit, because they don't want to be held by somebody who is under the control of Donald Trump or anybody else, or some rich guy who owns all the satellites in the sky can just go, I support this side, so you're screwed, and unlevel the playing field to make the playing field slant in one person's favor. And so Bakhanov said that the in celebration of Cosmonaut Day, he was telling about the fact that they were able to put these state-backed internet things into orbit. And Putin praised the March 23 launch as a key milestone for Russia's space program. Bakhanov said that Ukraine attempted to disrupt it. Plesetsk Cosmodrome is about 800 kilometers north of Moscow and about 1,300 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. So when they say space is beyond politics, our friends did everything to prevent this launch. He said that day there were serious strike attempts on the Cosmodrome, but the joint combat crews of Roscosmos Enterprises and the Space Forces completed their mission. Bakhanov did not provide details on the attack. The Defense Ministry did not explicitly comment on the space-based assault, but did report the downing of dozens of drones across the country around that date. Excuse me, Roscosmos was referring to the launch of Soyuz 2.1B rocket, not billion, a medium-lift launch vehicle used as the workhorse in the Russian space industry. The rocket was carrying 16 satellites belonging to the Rassvet constellation. Rassvet means dawn. Developed by Russian private aerospace firm Bureau 1440, widely described as Moscow's answer to Elon Musk's Starlink. Russian officials have been suspicious of Starlink, which isn't operating in their country, but is actively used by Ukraine. Russian satellites operate as 5G base stations. They interconnect via laser communication links and are capable of transmitting data at speeds up to 1 gigabits per second. Their target orbital altitude is 800 kilometers. Bureau 1440 is planning to deploy more than 900 low-orbit relays by 2035. So that's happening. So in keeping with effects on the rest of the world, 3 weeks of fuel, 170 million people. So in Bangladesh, the fuel shortage is getting horrible. Dhaka is juggling rationing, early shop closures, hybrid schooling to manage the nation's use of petroleum resources amid the Middle East crisis. My daughter is sleeping in the ICU. This is a story. My daughter is sleeping in the ICU of a hospital in Mohakali, Dhaka, and I have been in the queue at the Trust filling station since 1:30 a.m., and it is now 2:45. If I cannot get fuel, I will leave the bike on the road and just walk away. I do not have the strength left in my body to push this bike all the way to the hospital. A Bangladeshi journalist posted this on social media. One more voice in the flood of similar posts over the past few weeks as the energy crisis triggered by the war in Iran has swept across the nation of 177 million people. The post was later updated to say that the man finally received 5 liters of fuel at 6:50 a.m. Social media is full of images of long lines of gas pumps across Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, and the situation is reportedly even more acute in other parts of the South Asian nation, hit by the severe energy crisis triggered by Trump's conflict in the Middle East. Thousands of fishermen across Barishal. You got to see these lines. It's friggin' incredible. And they're standing there for hours. These lines go forever, and people don't have the gas, and oh my God, the thousands of fishermen in the country's southernmost division have been passing idle days and suffering pretty large financial losses as the fishing towns are not operating at full capacity. More than 1,000 seagoing trawlers are stranded in Alipur and Mohipur and Barishal, leaving 100,000 fishermen and workers out of work. I tell you, the lines are incredible. And diesel fuel is costing so much money. These boys and girls can't pay for it at any level. So it's bad news. And the fuel crisis visible at gas pumps across the country, including in Dhaka. In early March, shortages were aggravated by the Eid holiday banking shutdown, and Eid is at the end of Ramadan, and disrupted supply chains and delayed payments and deliveries. Stocks are limited, sales are capped, lines are long, pressure on filling stations continues as demand certainly exceeds supply. And the government has a mounting challenge in trying to keep this up. And so the world is really feeling this. Now, me, I feel it too. I don't like paying this $4 a gallon crapola for gas. I'm against it, especially when I spouted off so much about how wonderful it was a short 2 months ago to only be paying $2.50. We will forgive a lot of indiscretion at $2.50 a gallon, but at $4, we're not so rational. We're not so forgiving at $4 a gallon. We just don't. I don't like it, and we hope that things end here. I'm not so sure on my own here that the old Trumpsters' war over the Straits of Hormuz are going to be of any help to the rest of the planet, and it's possible that things get much worse far quicker if he manages to block all of the ports in Iran and the Straits of Hormuz. I'm not sure he can really do that. Certainly there aren't going to be any destroyers or warships of America in the Straits of Hormuz directly, because they'll get the crap blown out of them. It's too narrow, and it's been recommended, according to much of the stuff that I've read, it's been recommended by the Navy chiefs and by all of the people in charge that you really don't want to do that. You don't put your eggs in a huge your huge eggs in a tiny little basket like that, or they will be targeted. So I'm not so sure that is a good idea, friends and neighbors. I want to go back to that video. I pulled up on my screen. They're kicking him. They're beating the crap out of this poor dude, and he just doesn't want to go to war. So they just kick him, drag him, beat him, drop him on his head, and you're going. Let me kick you. This is nuts. And what are you going to do? You got all these thugs out there going to beat you. So this Ukrainian man was seized and beaten by these conscription officers in Odessa. And it's footage is there. Another incident. Here it goes. Ukraine suffer mounting losses in the conflict, and the pool of willing recruits is virtually nothing. They don't want to do this. These enforcement squads have turned to coercion and beatings to fill the ranks. This practice, as I've told you before, is called busification. Shows military men being snatched from the streets, workplace, and residential areas, taken to recruitment centers against their will, triggering clashes with relatives, neighbors, passers-by. And in a video published by Telegram on Friday, 5 officers are seen hauling a man out of the entrance of his building in Odessa, grabbing him by the arms, legs, dragging him toward a vehicle as he cries out for help. "What are you doing? Let him go, you bastards," said a woman filming from a nearby balcony. Another voice calls on the bystanders to call the police. One of the officers punches the man in response. The incident is the latest in a string, and I shouldn't laugh about that. It's really sad. It's just the latest. The backlash is building alongside violence. And there's a lady who's the ombudsman for the military, Olga Reshetilova, maybe the udarenia is wrong on that, the stress, said that even school children are now increasingly harassing draft officers after watching the videos of their violent behavior. 2 conscription officers were stabbed in Ukraine by locals when they came to collect people. A bunch of people attacked them and stabbed them. One of them got stabbed fatally in the neck in Lvov. They are not for this war any longer. And I'm not positive that all of them ever were. It was only the extreme nationalist Nazis where the SS and the swastika that were for this. And so earlier this month, the killing of those 2 officers was a really big deal. And some Ukrainian officials, they don't like to talk about it, but some have acknowledged the depth of the recruitment crisis. And according to Vadim Ivchenko, a member of Parliament's National Security Committee, only 8 to 10% of new personnel are willing recruits. 8 to 10%. They have to fill 20 to 30,000 deaths a month. And then only 8 to 10% of them are voluntary. Everybody else is forced, beaten, dragged to the front. Moscow accuses Kiev's Western backers of fighting to the last Ukrainian. You've heard me say that. Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov has estimated that Ukraine has lost nearly 500,000 servicemen in 2025 alone. And the total losses, according to Sergei Viktorovich Lavrov, is that they have lost total military casualties far in excess of 1 million. And that's truly depressing for them, especially, and their families. And so far, not ending. No normalcy, I guess is a good word. No normalcy in effect on the planet these days. It's a mixed up, muddled up, shook up world. Exactly. I appreciate you being on International Flavor this morning. I thank you for joining me Monday through Thursday from 7:30 until 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, United States of America, Chicago time. Or I suppose you could call it Dallas time, too. It's Dallas time. Let's say Dallas time. I'm not a big fan of Chicago, even though I went to University of Illinois. And Chicago's in Illinois. I don't know that I would want to admit that too often, right? Anyway, you can always go out to internationalflavor.com and hear these hilarious moments in repeat scenarios. Or you can go to damradio.com/podcast and get my program and quite a few other good programs that are played on Damn Radio each and every week for your listening pleasure. Thank you very much, and I hope you have an extremely wonderful and profitable Mid-Missouri day. Have a very nice